Hell is just a government creation, and all the information they solicit isn't nearly close to truth. It was consistency alteration.
During his XXL freshman freestyle in 2017, XXXTENTACION presented the idea that hell does not exist, and he also implied that political authorities played a role in creating the concept of hell. And as it turns out, this perspective is actually validated by many historians. So in this video, we are exploring the history of the religious beliefs relating to hell, and we are discussing some reasons why certain institutions continue to promote this ideology. So let's dive in, and we'll begin by hearing from Dr. Bart Ehrman, who holds a Princeton University Ph.D. in the discipline of textual analysis of the Bible. And as an author, 6 of Dr. Ehrman's books have been on the New York Times bestseller list. Now, we're starting off with a statement from one of his recent books called Heaven and Hell, A History of the Afterlife. And in this book, Dr. Ehrman writes the following, quote, "The ideas of heaven and hell were invented and have been altered over the years, and I think that can be proven." So now let's listen to Dr. Ehrman talking about the main concept of his book, Heaven and Hell.
As it turns out, this understanding that you die and your soul goes to one place or another is not taught anywhere in the Old Testament, and it's not what the historical Jesus taught.
So Dr. Ehrman confirms that the idea of hell is not a teaching that came from Jesus. So then why is the concept of eternal punishment found in the New Testament? Well, Dr. Ehrman and many other scholars demonstrate that the word hell ended up in the English New Testament as a result of a mistranslation. See, the early versions of the New Testament were written in Greek, and Dr. Ehrman demonstrates how in the original Greek copies of the text, the word hell did not appear. Instead, we find the word Gehenna, which was the name of a literal place during the time of Jesus. There was a well-known valley located outside of Jerusalem that was called Gehenna. And in his book, Dr. Ehrman proposes that during the translation of the Gospels from Greek to English, the word Gehenna was taken out of context and was incorrectly translated into the word hell. And this is problematic because that is not what Gehenna meant.
Jesus doesn't use either word. Jesus uses the word Gehenna. And it turns out that's not even it's in the Greek New Testament, but he wasn't speaking Greek, and it's not a Greek word. Gehenna refers to a valley outside of Jerusalem that was thought to be a completely God-forsaken, desecrated place. And Jesus threatens people that if they sin against God and don't repent, they're going to be thrown into Gehenna. But when English translators, they weren't going to use the word Gehenna because nobody knows what that means. And so they thought, well, okay, it means hell. And so they translated it as hell. But then when an English reader reads that, Jesus is saying you're going to be cast into hell. And oh my God, because you're going to be tortured forever. And he's not talking about being tortured forever. But you only know that if you put it in its own context instead of thinking that it's like in our modern context.
So, with this context, we can understand that the doctrine of hell is a misinterpretation and a fabrication. But this also raises another question, which is, why is the threat of eternal punishment upheld as a central teaching by various religious organizations? Well, to answer this, let's hear from John Shelby Spong, who was originally a Christian preacher and bishop, but he retired and went on to become a prominent author and speaker.
I don't think hell exists. I happen to believe in life after death, but I don't think it's got a thing to do with reward and punishment. Religion is always in the control business, and that's something people don't really understand. It's in the guilt-producing control business. And if you have heaven as a place where you're rewarded for your goodness and hell as a place where you're punished for your evil, then you sort of have control of the population. And so they create this fiery place, which has quite literally scared the hell out of a lot of people throughout Christian history. And it's part of a control tactic.
So, with this in mind, we can understand that religious institutions are businesses, and their business strategy is actually genius because they have created a problem, which is the concept of hell, and they present themselves as the only solution. And anyway, X actually mentioned hell 2 different times during his XXL freestyle, and we're going to talk about the second example, but first let's actually discuss the specific wording of the first statement. So X proposed that hell is a government creation as opposed to a fabrication by religious authorities. Now, why did he mention the government in his lyrics? Well, historians are continuing to present evidence confirming the close relationship between the origins of Orthodox Christianity and the government of the ancient Roman Empire. There is even a popular 2018 book on Amazon called Creating Christ: How Roman Emperors Invented Christianity. And in the book, the authors present over 3 decades of research covering the historical origins of Christianity. And we're going to read one key sentence in order to demonstrate the main point. So, in the text, the authors write the following about ancient Rome. For both the Roman state and the early Christians, this was a period of liberal religious invention in which practicing outright religious fraud was a matter of routine. So, with this in mind, we can see that X's reference to the government during his freestyle can actually be substantiated by historical evidence. And anyway, now let's listen to the other example of X mentioning hell during his XXL freestyle.
Oh, the ultimatum. I'm telling you the truth, but oh well, I'm already in hell. I'm tired of having patience.
Now, on the surface, that may have sounded like it was just an edgy statement designed to grab attention. But if we place it in context and consider some of the other ideas that X was speaking about at the time, we can actually recognize this as a very insightful perspective. So we are going to discuss the meaning of that quote, and we'll talk about why it matters. Now, during his career, X was known to speak about a wide range of spiritual topics, and on a number of occasions, he can be heard describing this universe as a realm of slavery.
I'm going to be able to teach people that, and then I'm going to be able to pull the few people out of this realm of slavery, you get what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to get to.
So, X referred to this world as hell, and he called it a realm of slavery. And you may notice that this perspective is similar to the Buddhist concept of samsara, which describes existence as a cycle of birth, death, rebirth, and suffering. And one of the main ideas of Buddhism is that through spiritual practice, people can escape from the cycle of reincarnation and release themselves into a higher state of eternal freedom. So, with that said, I am now going to present a fairly esoteric perspective relating to my personal understanding of how humanity can collectively escape from the system of reincarnation. And in order to illustrate this point, we are going to talk about Gnosticism, which is another ideology that aligns closely with X's philosophies. Now, I'll run through this part quickly because I've made videos on this in the past, But I want to point out how the statement from the XXL freestyle, where X said he was already in hell when he was on this planet, is actually very similar to the core philosophy of Gnosticism. And I'll present a quick explanation for why this is the case. So, the Gnostic philosophy can basically be summarized as follows. The ultimate God is a God of pure love, and we originated in heaven, but there is a catch, because the belief is that some form of a cosmic accident occurred, and the idea is that this universe is the byproduct of that cosmic disaster. So, from the Gnostic perspective, this universe is actually the fallen dimension of hell, and that is why we see imperfections such as violence and war. And Bobby Hemmitt, who is an esteemed speaker on metaphysical topics, does a great job of explaining this concept.
They have shedded the physical body and gotten out of prison, and you are still in prison with the physical body, so that means you're still in death. What you call life is actually death, and what you call death is actually life. It's temporary life for some of those. They live again once they die. You are dead. This is the dead zone. This is hell. The physical realm is called hell. That's the original word for the hell, is the physical body and the physical earth.
Now, I do admit that this perspective does sound negative, and I will mention that I personally strive to view this concept in a very optimistic way, as I have described in other videos. But in the context of this video, I will present the Gnostic understanding that we do not have to be afraid of being sent to hell, because this universe is the fallen realm of hell, just like X said during his XXL freestyle. And from the Gnostic perspective, allegorically, the religious teachings about hell can be understood as a metaphysical trap designed to scare people away from the pursuit of deeper knowledge concerning the nature of this reality. And anyway, before we cover the last topic for this video, please consider liking and subscribing so that you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And also, if you have any thoughts on what we've talked about so far, or if there are any other topics that you want me to cover, then I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And anyway, there is one more thing that I want to cover during this video. Now, this will sound pretty crazy, but I have come to believe that there is an entity who is capable of leading humanity back into higher planes of existence. And if you want to know who I'm referring to, then check out this other video called Did XXXTENTACION Sell His Soul? I know that video transitions like this one can be annoying, but it's a long story, and I squeezed all of it into a pretty short video, so if you're interested, then there will be a link in the description. And anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Thank you again. Peace.